Our next presenters are from Scout. They are Kuno Vanderpost, Chief Revenue Officer, and KimberLee Heidmann, Executive Vice President for Patient Experience and Customer Success. Welcome to you both.
Thank you very much, Perry. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're good.
You can hear me all right. Okay, good. So really happy to be here today. And as you said, Perry, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Scout. Been in the industry for nearly 30 years. I know several of the presenters here, and I know that we're all very passionately committed to this space. It's just wonderful to be working in this environment. KimberLee Heidmann is our Executive Vice President of Patient Experience and Customer Success, and she'll be helping me out with the Q&A at the end, having been working in this space for over 25 years with patient travel and concierge work. So everybody, you can see the polling question. Please take a second just to fill it out. Much appreciated. Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit just about patient support. We're looking at some barriers to and that you have to get past really for successful enrollment and retention. But just a quick bit about Scout. We rebranded at the beginning of this year. A lot of people in the industry know us as Meeting Protocol Worldwide. We've been in the industry for 30 years. We started out doing investigator meetings, which we still do to this day, transporting people from all over the world to a central location, managing all the expenses, making all the payments, doctors' honorariums, etc. We did that very successfully for 20 odd years until one of our key global clients said, look, why aren't you doing this for patients? And about 8-9 years ago, we started doing the very same thing for patients. So the core DNA of this company is this high-touch, white-glove concierge capability, along with the financial payments and reimbursements. The first barrier that we see to successful enrollment is really participants being presented with the prospect of frequent and/or lengthy travel. We know that the further away a potential participant is from a site, the more reluctant they're going to probably want to take part in that. Having a white glove service that Scout provides can alleviate that burden on the patient. It's not just the logistical burden for them and potentially their caregivers as well. It's the emotional support. You're going to allow us to take care of all of that, and you leave the patient literally managing the emotions of getting to a site in good measure and being able to do what they need to do at the site. And all they have to worry about is once they're back home again. Everything in between can be managed by us. I think that this is critical. A lot of people overlook it. And also the frequency of that. For people like myself who travel a lot, being asked to go to a site once a month is no big deal. But there are plenty of people for whom that is actually an ordeal, given their actual circumstances surrounding the indication that they've got. And I think that this is often overlooked in the planning stages of a study. And I will just say, I feel really heartened to be working in the industry today. When I joined, it wouldn't be unfair for me to say that patients were often just seen as a unit in an industrial process. And today we're incredibly more patient-centric, which is a wonderful thing. But we've still got some ways to go. And we would encourage anybody that is attending today, looking at building out a study, you're in the ideation phase, you're in the protocol design phase, bring us in. We're often brought in by our key clients to give advice around the logistics and our thoughts on the patient populations that you're targeting and the locations. The second barrier to enrollment and successful conduct of participation is really around the expenses and the finances. There are two things. There's really the financial concern. If a patient thinks that they're going to encounter any kind of financial concern, they're not going to want to participate in your study. It's fairly simple. I wouldn't. Why would I have to worry about that? If I'm worrying about the condition that I'm suffering from, all the fear, anxiety, frustrations, anger, all those emotions I'm dealing with anyway, and now layering on top of that, I've got to start worrying about money. It's ridiculous. So, you've got to look at removing that from the patient's horizon. They don't need to be worried about that. I think that if they do enroll as well, and then they encounter financial burden, well, that's going to lead to toxicity, and they're probably going to drop out. And in fact, we know that roughly between 11 to 13% of patients will drop out of a study because they've not been paid the right way, they haven't been paid timely, or they're just fed up with having to fund something where they're only going to get paid at the end of the study. And these are relatively simple things, again, that you can incorporate into your study design. And if you contract with a company like ourselves, we make sure that the patients are paid in whatever manner they want, whether that is a reloadable debit card, which we call Scout Pass, or whether that's a direct transfer, if it's PayPal, whatever. We can manage that for them, and we can do it in a granular way as well. We could do it off the basis of results. We can do it off EDC data listings. We can do it off site completion. There's so many ways that we can structure that. And just to repeat, I think it's very crude that today's environment, we still hear of patients only being reimbursed at the end of the study. And I find that a little bit incomprehensible. That's in effect somebody's having to bail out a study and having to wait that period of time. That's just wrong. So we really feel that we bring a big relief in financial burden to patients. Also, we've got a clear directive as a community of researchers to try and make our trials far more inclusive. And in underserved communities, which often involve lower income families, somebody who lives 30 miles away from a site could face a $60 to $80 cab fare. Well, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, there's no way that you're going to contemplate that. I wouldn't. So again, please, people who are thinking about your protocol design, bring us in. We can show you the options that are available. We can take care of all of that. We can relieve all of that financial burden for your patients. And also, we relieve some of the burden from the site. The sites don't have to worry about making these payments either. And we can probably do it on a far more granular basis. Okay. The third barrier is potentially where it gets the most complex. Now, we've been in this space, as I said, for 30 years, moving people around the world. We've worked in 110 countries, so we've got a very large global footprint, and that's brought with it a lot of experience. And that really counts when you encounter difficult situations, such as you have a patient that you want to bring from Iran to Europe. We actually did that. So you can imagine that the visa complexities, the travel insurance complexities, the health insurance complexities were a significant burden. And you really don't want the patient to have to worry about that. It's going to be insurmountable for most. Let us manage that. That's what we do. It's not just getting them from Iran to Europe. Once they're in Europe, there's a whole range of complexities. For example, if you're wanting to pay somebody in France, you have to adhere to MR001, a deliberately manual process, a deliberately complex process designed to protect patient data as well. That involves a very tried and tested methodology, which we have. I think one of the other things is that we really do believe in putting people in front of patients. It's one of our core mantras. We believe that when we put highly trained, passionate people in front of patients, they don't let the patient down. And we have very specific roles of highly skilled, highly trained people, such as, for example, a patient liaison, who will actually manage all of this for the patient. They will be their direct communicator, their direct organizer, their direct hand holder. And it's a very powerful role, and it's done very, very well. And we know that this will help you enroll, and it will certainly help with patient satisfaction, and will give the greatest chance of a patient seeing through the study. And it's really why we have as our tagline, making the complex easier. This is how we make the complex easier for our clients. I think that just a couple of examples of where we have to layer in extra experience and skill sets. We have another role called a patient navigator. And where we encounter situations, for example, we had to take somebody out of the Amazon basin where they'd never seen a first world city, and we had to put them in a first world city in order to partake for 6 months in this clinical trial. Well, on top of all of the logistics around that, there is a huge cultural barrier that has to be overcome. So this cultural acclimation, we have our patient navigators trained specifically to help the patient and their caregivers, whoever is going with them, to be able to overcome this big change and to be able to navigate their way around, in this particular case, a first world city. It's not just that. There are other cultural examples I can give as well. There was a Hasidic Jewish community where a patient from that community in Israel was offered a place on a trial on the East Coast of America. And that actually required a lot of respectful negotiation and discussion. The Grand Rabbi from the hosting community had to be in communication with the Grand Rabbi from the Israel community, and they had to discuss and negotiate and find the right appropriate part of the community for that person to be fitted into. We had to have a highly skilled, highly experienced patient navigator that could facilitate that. So where we're getting involved in these complexities, we've gained a lot of experience, and we can bring that to bear for our clients, again, making the complex easier. I will just say that if we are losing clients from trials, it's a real negative impact. One, it's negative on the patient, of course. They'll probably never participate in a trial again. But more importantly, it's negative for the sponsor who's invested to try and make this happen. And we know that it takes on average about $19,000 to backfill a patient, let alone all the cost, the time and the resources to do that. And it can have a huge impact on your statistical outcomes that you're striving for in the study. So we feel we fill a very, very critical role in supporting the patients, removing these complex barriers for them, and helping out our clients. Finally, in summary, what I'd like to say is that Scout really does help simplify that travel, as I've just mentioned. We do it globally. We provide 24/7 global multilingual support for this. As part of our 8-year journey here, we've developed out multi-award winning technology. We have a portal that is highly intuitive for patients to be able to interact with, deliberately so. They can see where their expenses are. They can see where the travel arrangements have been made. And this is laid, of course, on top of the hand-holding that we give them via our patient liaisons. We also feel that throughout this whole process, throughout all the roles that we have, we really do remove both patient burden and site burden. We know that a site's core competency isn't organizing travel, organizing accommodation. That's what we do, and we do it very, very well. So we feel that we really do help with enrollment and retention. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and Perry, I'll hand it over to you for the questions and KimberLee's answers. Thank you.
What a great insights into the patient experience. Really just very eye-opening, very good. And one of our audience members says, what a refreshing set of services you're offering. So kudos from Estelle. Here's a question about your global availability, but you've mentioned Iran and the Amazon jungle, so maybe I'll turn that around. Is there anywhere you don't work?
Yes, Antarctica. In fact, we'd like to get a study there. Maybe we can do something, but it's about the only continent we haven't worked in.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question to ask. And we do get asked that question quite a bit. And as Kuno mentioned, we are in over 108 countries. We like to say in our answer that we work where you work. So where our clients are able to provide those patients, find those patients, have those sites. And that includes, as Kuno said, when that patient was identified in Iran, that was something that we had to dedicate resources to, both from a regulatory standpoint, but also from a global compliance and legal standpoint. So if there are sanctions on a country, this is something that we have to take very seriously and find out what can we do. So we're happy to provide that case study so that folks can find out exactly how Scout approached that. But our regulatory, legal, and financial groups are dedicated to making sure that we can provide those services in those countries for patients where you're conducting your studies.
Very impressive. So do you have any observations and insights into the challenges around like specific therapeutic areas?
Yeah, Kino, I think, mentioned this, that our services are not only global, but broad across therapeutic areas. And I think it's important to recognize that financial toxicity and logistics are difficult for patients in clinical research, no matter the condition or the status of the patient. These logistical barriers and financial barriers impact recruitment and retention across all therapeutic areas, whether you're in a vaccine trial or you are in a rare disease trial, you're doing gene therapy, whatever that may be. Now, what we do is we focus those services dependent upon the patient population and the study design. So Kino mentioned the two key components of our client base, which is our patients, most importantly, and our sites. But our sponsors and our CROs rely heavily upon us for our protocol design and study design, how we collaborate and how we offer advice on how they can actually potentially increase their recruitment and their enrollment. So this is important across all clinical trials in all therapeutic areas. And I would encourage any sponsor and CRO to consider their patient base when they're looking at the design and how they can incorporate these types of services. It's not going to be the broad range. It's not going to be full scope for every study, but there are important things that you need to discuss to mitigate financial and logistical toxicity for these individuals.
Thank you very much. Such an eye-opening presentation. This is incredible. This is not something that I often keep top of mind, but so real and so important. So thank you very much, Kuno Vanderpost and KimberLee Heidmann from Scout. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.